All right, guys, welcome back again. We're going to be picking up where we left off in the last video. We just finished reading Tribe of the Wayward Clones. So now we are ready to answer the questions on the following page on 141. So each question has a hint that's going to help us out. It tells us that in our directions. So let me get my pen going. And actually, before I start looking at my directions, I'm going to rewrite the title of my lesson up at the top one more time. And I know the title of this is Analyzing the Impact. Oh, I can tell my pen's being a little difficult. Of story elements. Not story elements. My mind is in a different place. We're analyzing the impact of word choice. That's what I'm doing. Sorry, guys. Analyzing the impact of word choice. And I know analyzing means that I am breaking something apart to take a closer look at it. So underneath analyzing, I'm going to write break down, break apart, whatever you want to put. And I know impact focuses on how something is affected or changed by something else. And this phrase, word choice, lets me know we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to be talking about figurative language, connotative language, sound devices, and literary devices. So, figurative language, remember, focuses on like our similes, metaphors, personification. Connotative language focuses on the feeling behind the word. Literary devices, those are special effects that authors can use, such as imagery and idioms, to kind of get their meaning across in a creative way. And then we have certain sound devices that authors can use as well to help develop meaning and tone. And the sound devices are really what we're paying a lot of attention to in this lesson. Remember, our sound devices that we've been talking about are word repetition, alliteration, and assonance. So that's just a little refresher for you. And anytime that we're talking about anything that has to do with word choice, you have to consider tone, whether or not it's positive, negative, or neutral. All right, so I think that's pretty good for our title just for that. So now let's go ahead and look at our directions. So our directions say to use the hints on this page to help us answer the question. So just like always, for all of our part fours, we have hints that are going to help us answer the questions. So let's look at our first hint before we look at number one. So this hint says, is Langston 57 right in thinking that standing out can only have terrible results for him? Well, I would say not necessarily right, but if he stands out, we know that it could have bad results. So I'm going to make myself a note that says not necessarily, but it could have bad results. Just depending. Okay. So we know Langston is afraid of standing out, right? Because of what could happen. He could get reprogrammed. So that would be bad, right? But not it doesn't seem like it's going to be all bad, right? So we can say not necessarily, but if he does get found out, it could potentially have bad results for him. So now that we know what we know about this hint, let's look over to number 1 and see what it wants us to do. So the first thing we have to do is read these sentences from paragraph 2. So we have a few sentences to look at. So let's look at those. And it says, if I stood out, I knew I would be isolated and then reprogrammed to behave predictably, identically. If I stood out, I knew it would be the end of the individually evolving miraculous me. So, if you notice, there are a few phrases that are underlined for us in this section of paragraph 2. So, I'm going to underline those again because I know they must be important. So, our further directions say in paragraph 3, sentence 2, the narrator again says, I stood out. How is the impact of this phrase different in paragraph 3 than it's used in paragraph 2? So we're trying to figure out how the author uses that phrase, I stood out, a different way in paragraph 3 than they use in paragraph 2. So it gives us the phrase, I stood out, in paragraph 2 above. So we know that this is paragraph 2. So you will have to look back in your text for the sentence in paragraph 3 that talks about how he stood out. So I want you to answer number 1 on your own because this is good practice for you to see if you understand what it's asking. So go ahead, pause the video, look back at your text, reread the question if you need to, make your answer choice, and then we will come back and go over it together. All right, guys, so I am assuming that you are back because you have finished answering number 1 and you're ready to check your answer. So we're going to work through this answer choice by answer choice until we get to the right one, and we're going to talk about why things are wrong and why things are right. So first, let's look at answer choice A. It says, it shows how the narrator's thoughts repeat themselves. So we know that, well, it is getting repeated, right? That phrase, I stood out, is being repeated in paragraph 2, and this being repeated again in paragraph 3. But I would say that there's probably a little bit more to it than just the thoughts repeating themselves. This is a very surface level statement. It offers no analysis of repetition. So I'm going to say answer choice A. Um, it could be an option for us. We'll keep it in mind just to see if there's a better one. But right now it's a very surface level, um, a surface level statement about repetition. So let's go ahead and look at answer choice B. So answer choice B says it emphasizes that the narrator's greatest fear is being seen as different. Well, this is true, but we're trying to figure out how things are different in paragraph 3. And this statement really focuses on paragraph 2, not paragraph 3. So because of that, answer choice B is out for us because that's how he feels in paragraph 2, not paragraph 3. So now let's look at answer choice C. It reveals the narrator's amazement that being discovered turns out well. Well, in paragraph 2 and 3, he doesn't know if it's going to turn out well for him or not. He's just he's like on the borderline. He's scared. He doesn't really know what's going on, and he doesn't know how things are going to end for him yet because he has been noticed. So he doesn't know if it's going to turn out well for him, not yet. So answer choice C is going to be out for us because of that. So I'm going to write, he doesn't know he doesn't know that it will end well. So now let's look at answer choice D. Answer choice D says it describes the narrator's shock that someone sees he is different from the others. So this, I would say, is a pretty good option for us. In paragraph number 3, the first thing that happens is someone else is noticing that he is different, right? So this is going to emphasize, right, the fear of being discovered, because when somebody notices that he's different, it emphasizes that fear. So this is focusing on the repetition and how it emphasizes his fear. So between answer choice A and D, I would say answer choice D is the better option for us because answer choice A is just very surface level. It really doesn't give us the reason for the repetition. It doesn't give us a good analysis of that. And because of that, answer choice D is the better option because it takes it to that next level. It says it describes the narrator's shock that someone sees he is different from others. All right, so now let's move on to answer choice, not answer choice, question number 2. And let's look at our hint. And our hint says, how does Langston 57 feel before he is contacted by Carrie 88? Well, if you think back to your story, we know that before he is contacted by Carrie 88, um, he's repeating everything the same way. So he's basically living the same day over and over again. He has the same thoughts, he has the same feelings, the same emotions, but he's a little bit different, right? So number one, he everything is getting repeated for him in the same way. And on top of that, he is also a little bit worried of being discovered. He's worried someone is going to find out that he is different and that he will have to be reprogrammed. Okay, so knowing what we know now, let's look at number 2 and see what number 2 is asking us to do. So it says in paragraph 4, what is the impact of the phrase, a solitary sliver of soothing light? So a solitary sliver of soothing light. And we know that that is an example of alliteration. It's got that repetition of the consonant sound that's kind of a very soft S sound, solitary sliver of soothing light. So now that we know that that's our example of alliteration, we're trying to figure out the impact of that phrase. So I want you to think about tone here to help you discover the impact. I want you to think about tone and how that phrase um kind of makes you feel. I want you to think about how it makes you feel. All right, so I want you to answer this question on your own. And whenever you have it answered, I want you to come back and I want you to check your answer with my answer. So go ahead, think about that. If you need to go back to your passage and reread paragraph 4, you are welcome to. But go ahead and pause the video. When you're finished, you'll come back and check what you've got. All right, guys. So I'm assuming that you are back and you are ready to check your answer for number 2. So let's go through it answer choice by answer choice and see what we can come up with. So answer choice A says it highlights the contrast between Langston 57's happy past and dangerous future. So if you think about Langston's past, it mentions it in paragraph 1 how he's living the same day basically over and over again because he does everything in the same way and nothing is different because they're all identical clones. He doesn't really use words that make us think that his past is happy. So his past for us, it doesn't seem very happy. It doesn't seem like a good past. So this one is incorrect because his past is not a very happy past, right? So we know because of that phrase, happy past, answer choice A is not what we're looking for. So let's look at answer choice B. It suggests that Langston 57's feelings of fear and isolation are about to end. So this answer choice kind of this is kind of pointing us in the direction of the tone of the story. So it helps us feel that there's a tone of possible hope. Maybe that it's calm and peaceful. So tone of hope. Then I'm going to do a comma. I'm going to write calm and peaceful. So this could be a good option for us. That phrase, solitary sliver of soothing light, kind of makes me feel calm and peaceful whenever I read it out loud, especially that word soothing. That word soothing has positive connotation. If you are soothed, it means that you're at peace, you're being taken care of. Like, people soothe a crying baby to make them feel better. So that kind of lends a hand to the tone being definitely calm and peaceful. So answer choice B is potential. It's a potential for us, but let's look at C and D before we decide. So answer choice C says it creates suspense about whether Carrie 88 might be trapping Langston. So that phrase, solitary sliver of soothing light, there's nothing really suspenseful about that. It's more hopeful than anything. So I'm going to mark out answer choice C for us because this one is definitely more hopeful than suspenseful. All right, so answer choice D says it emphasizes how Langston, 57, refuses to take a risk. Well, maybe he refused to take a risk at the beginning, right, because he was worried, but at the end of the passage, he does take a risk by visiting Carrie 88. So this one's not true because at the end, he does take a risk. So this one's not really true. So answer choice D can be eliminated for that reason. So that leaves the only answer that would work for us as being answer choice B because we know that alliteration of solitary sliver of soothing light is going to help create a tone that's peaceful and calm. And we know because of that, his feelings of fear and isolation are about to end. He's being soothed, he's being calmed, right? So, answer choice B is your best option there. So, now we are ready for our writing question. Yay! All right, so before we look at our writing prompt, let's look at the hint and see what the hint is asking us to do or think about. So, it says, how did Langston 57's view of his world change after he noticed a change in himself? So, if you think back at the beginning of the text in paragraph 1, he's talking about how every day is very repetitive. He sees things in the same way, he's doing the same things over and over again, and it's because everyone is the same, everyone is identical, everyone looks like him. There are a bunch of other Langstons running around, probably one at least through number 57. So he sees things in a different way. But after he notices a change in himself, things begin to kind of look up for Langston, right? So he says that he is evolving. He calls himself miraculous and he's an individual. So things are going to start looking up for him a little bit because he has figured out he's different from everyone else. He can have some individuality going on for him. So something is changing in Langston. So we're going to think about that as we respond to our writing prompt in paragraph number, not paragraph, answer number 3. So let's talk about our writing prompt for number 3. And as we can think about this writing prompt, also think back to your hint. So in our writing prompt says in paragraph 1, the narrator repeats those words the same. You have to write a paragraph explaining how this phrase is important to Langston 57's story. And you're going to have to use 2 details from the passage to support your response. So we are going back to this phrase, the same, which is an example of word repetition. So you're thinking about that phrase and how the author, the narrator of the story, is going to repeat it over and over again, especially in paragraph number 1. So you're going to think about that, and you're also going to think about how it's important to Langston's story. So you're going to have to notice that whenever he's repeating that word, that phrase, the same, over and over again, what part of his story is he at? He's at the beginning, right? Because this all happens in paragraph 1. So what does that say about Langston's opinion of himself and the world around him? So think about that. And as you write, you're going to choose 2 details from the text to support your response. So, what I want you to do now is take a minute. I want you to respond to this writing prompt in a paragraph. And as you are writing, I want you to use your racist strategy. I want you to restate the prompt. I want you to answer the question. I want you to cite your details, your evidence from the text. And then I want you to explain your evidence because we've got to take it a step further. We have to have our evidence, but we have to explain it too. And then I want you to have a concluding statement at the end that's a little bit of summary. All right, so I want you to think about your racist strategy. I want you to respond to this writing prompt for me in a paragraph. Whenever you have this done, you can come back and we'll talk about my answer. but I want you to do yours first. If you don't have enough room in your Ready workbook, you are more than welcome to open up like a clean sheet of notebook paper, and you can use that as well, and we can tape it into your source book if necessary. All right, guys, so go ahead and start writing. Pick up your pencil and see what you can come up with. Whenever you're finished, come back here and we will check your answer. All right, guys, now that you are back, let's go ahead and talk about number 3, your writing prompt. We've got to check your answer and see how you did. So once again, your writing prompt says, in paragraph 1, the narrator repeats the words, the same. Write a paragraph explaining how this phrase is important to Langston 57's story. You had to use 2 details from the passage to support your response. So as you were writing about that, you had to think about how Langston 57's view of the world changed after he noticed a change in himself. So let me scroll over to my slideshow. So this is the answer that I came up with. So I want you to check your answer with mine. If you have something similar, then you're on the right track. You are also welcome to copy this down into your workbook or on a scratch sheet of paper, however you want to do it. Don't erase your answer because I want you to be able to go back and look at your answer, but I want you to copy this down as well. So my answer says, Langston 57 repeats the same to emphasize the contrast between his former and sorry, let me just restart. I'm getting tongue-tied. Langston 57 repeats the same to emphasize the contrast between his former and current lives. He says, for a long time, every day seemed the same to me. He had the same happy, bland thoughts over and over again. Since changing, his thoughts have been troubled by the fear that he will stand out and be sent away for reprogramming. The repetition of the same shows how strongly Langston 57 feels the difference between his present and past selves and himself and others. So, we know that the author repeats this phrase the same over and over again because there's something important about that phrase. So he is emphasizing the contrast of Langston's former life with his current life. So we know before, right, he was just an average clone. He had the same thoughts, the same feelings as everyone else. There was nothing spectacular or different about his average day. But whenever he changes and begins to have more self-awareness and have his own thoughts, things change for him as well. So the author, right, the author is having Langston repeat this phrase the same over and over again to emphasize the contrast between his former life and the life he has now. So, since changing, we know that Langston's thoughts have been troubled with fear that he's going to be stand out and be reprogrammed, right? Because he doesn't comply with the rules, right? He's not your average clone. So, the repetition of the same, that phrase again, shows that Langston feels very strongly about the difference between his present self and his past self, and also his feelings of himself and others. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap up part 4. So when you have that copied down, you will be good to go. So if you have questions about anything that we talked about with part 4, this video or the last video, make sure to let me know because I'm always happy to help. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for us today. Don't forget to study for your quiz tomorrow. Your quiz will be on part 4 of this lesson as well as a few other things, so make sure you prepare appropriately. All right, I will see you guys later.